where we get the opportunity to give you some information and answer some questions for the community. So welcome and thank you for being here. I'll start off by going over our crime numbers from the past couple of weeks. And I will point out, I apologize that this is actually not bi-weekly. There was 3 weeks because I did not calculate a 5-week month. We went first and third Wednesday. So apologize for that. But our latest numbers on our homicides is we're sitting year to date at 133 compared to 127 this time last year. And the non-fatal shootings continue to trend down. So we're still a little bit over 9% down in non-fatal shootings, which we're thankful for. Violent crime overall is down. So we're trying to work on that homicide number. Obviously, that's unacceptable. And then in our robbery category being at 133 compared to 123 this time last year. So an 8% increase there. So obviously still a lot of work to do in the area of violent crime, and that will continue to be our primary focus is how we address violent crime. You've heard us talk about our crime plan. We'll be announcing to you when we're going to do a specific press conference related to that so we can get details out to the community. We're still wrapping a few things up, working with some community members, working with some internal stakeholders on kind of some final tweaks to that crime plan to make sure that we're good to go. And we'll be making that announcement in the next couple of weeks. So as far as our significant arrests, we've cleared 55 of those homicide cases. So that's a pretty good number there, as well as 69 non-fatal shooting arrests. And I will say that non-fatal shooting squad is doing an outstanding job. Our prosecution rate for non-fatal shootings has increased since we started the non-fatal shooting squad. So that's something we're very proud of. They're working very hard. Those cases are particularly difficult because just dealing with cooperation of victims as well as witnesses. Those cases are difficult and present their own issues separate from homicide investigations. So very proud of the work they're doing, as well as what we're looking at on the federal indictments. And like I've said before, those federal indictments, that's indicative of the quality of cases that our detectives are investigating. So the feds don't pick up cases unless they know they're almost assured successful prosecution. So that means those particularly CID, our Criminal Interdiction Division, those detectives are doing outstanding investigations, and it's being recognized at the federal level. So one of the things that has been significant in the news in the past is incident from 2020 during the protests involving one of our officers. And this is the pepper ball incident in which a reporter and the videographer had pepper balls fired in their direction and ultimately struck them. So to give you a little bit of background on that incident is that incident occurred May 29th, 2020. And it was ultimately, the investigation was picked up by the FBI. There has been a lot of frustration about how long this case took. To help you understand, when we have cases that are under criminal investigation, we oftentimes do not begin the administrative investigation until after the criminal investigation is done, because we want that criminal investigation to take priority, and we don't want the administrative investigation where we force an officer to give a statement, which, as you know, everybody in a criminal investigation is entitled to constitutional protections against self-incrimination, which means that they don't have to talk. And if we force them to talk in a criminal investigation, that can't be used against them. So we want to make sure that we don't interfere with any of those criminal investigations, which is why you get a delay between the criminal and the administrative investigation. So that was under investigation by the FBI for over 3 years. During that entire time period, Officer Dean was put on restricted duty. So he was on administrative suspension, had his police power stripped from him, and was working a desk job at the time. He was unable to work overtime, secondary employment, and was unable to put in for promotion or anything like that. So during that entire time, under that investigation, he spent on the desk. As part of this, once we got the case back from the FBI, they declined any criminal charges related to it. And he was then the PSU case was initiated. Ultimately, he had 4 charges against him, one related to the reporting of the incident, which he actually self-reported that incident before we even had a lot of information about it. He saw it on the news and came to his supervisors and said that was him that was involved in it, which is pretty honorable from his standpoint to self-report that. Then he had a use of force de-escalation charge that he was also exonerated of. And then he has 2 chemical agent usage charges, one which he was exonerated. That is after verbal commands were given to the reporters and to the crowd. He fired pepper balls at the ground in their direction and then gave more verbal orders for them to disperse after that lawful order. And then ultimately he does deploy pepper balls and strike the videographer involved, and he was sustained on that charge for violating our use of force policy as it relates to chemical agents. And he has received a letter of reprimand in this incident, understanding that now can be used if he has any other similar disciplinary issues. It can be used as part of progressive discipline. But like I said, he was on desk duty for well over 3 years. He's gotten a pretty significant punishment. And I will say that during that time period, he's performed as an exemplary employee. He could have had a bad attitude. He could have come in and created a culture around him that negatively affected everybody around him. And he's done nothing but come in with a great attitude, worked his tail off, and done exactly what I would ask an officer to do in a tough situation for him. And so all of those factors were considered as part of the discipline in this process. I have spoken with the videographer related to this. I have not yet spoken with the reporter. I've tried to get a hold of them, waiting for a call back, hopefully soon. And I've also spoken to the news director at Wave 3, since it involved your station directly. Some of the things I want to point out in relation to this, or that's notable in relation to this, is we've undergone drastic policy changes and structural changes in LMPD since 2020. And I want to go through a couple of things, particularly related to use of force, so you all understand how seriously we take these things. One of the things I think is very important, you've heard us talk about the Graham factors and the evaluation of use of force. And that comes directly from the Supreme Court. And so we've incorporated the Graham factors directly in our use of force policy. And it is currently referenced in that use of force policy as being our standard. We've also created our Force Investigations Unit, which is designed to make sure that investigations of use of force are done thoroughly, they're done well, and they're done consistently. And supervisors and officers are given timely feedback on the quality of those investigations, as well as the particular use of force and whether it was justified or we need to make corrections or take corrective action on that officer. We mandated training related to use of force, specifically use of force law and updates in policy for all officers, the entire department, as well as every supervisor. In addition to that use of force law class, went through an additional 8 hours of use of force training related to understanding the expectations of them, as well as how to conduct a proper use of force investigation and how to document that properly. We also created tool-specific policies. So our previous use of force policy encompassed everything, but for clarity's sake, what we did was we separated out intermediary tools that would give better, more clear guidance to officers of how, when, and why you would use a certain tool, and then the actions that you need to take related to it. So for instance, as opposed to having TASER incorporated in the use of force policy as a whole, it is now in its own separate standalone policy with other intermediary tools that gives advice and guidance on how to use those. We've also changed to a level reporting system, which means that we divide the types of use of force based on their severity and any injuries to anyone involved into different levels, which gives the supervisors guidance on the level of investigation that is now required. So you've always seen that, for an officer-involved shooting or a critical incident like that, PIU ends up getting involved, and we automatically create a PSU level investigation. But everything below that also needs guidance on the thoroughness of the investigation based on its severity. And so we've separated use of force into 4 separate categories that gives them guidance on everything that is required for that specific level use of force. So you can take a look at our updated policy on our website and see all of those new changes that we have seen very good results in. Those policies were updated and went live after everyone went through training so that they could better understand and comprehend that the new standards that they would be asked to adhere to. And so I think we've gotten a corresponding good response from officers and their performance, and supervisors are doing a great job with making sure that they're enforcing the standard. And just like anything else, there's going to be ups and downs with it. And so we expect that we'll make more changes to make sure that this works more smoothly. I want to highlight some of the upcoming events that we have going on over the next few weeks. Our great program, our gang resistance training that we do for elementary schools. We'll have a graduation of that program in Eisenhower Elementary. The 3rd grade class there has gone through it. And so we'll have the graduation there this Friday at 2:30. So pretty excited about that. Our Citizens Police Academy, which has 19 participants in it in this round, is starting. And if anybody has any interest in joining Citizens Police Academy, we also have an International Citizens Police Academy. You can reach out to Minerva Varola, who is our Equity and Diversity Coordinator. She runs all of those programs, does an outstanding job with those. The Veterans Day Parade is this weekend on Saturday at noon. So we encourage all of our veterans to come out. It's a good time to be able to recognize those veterans. And then lastly, I will be joining Jarena Weathers, our Commonwealth Attorney, for a town hall on November 12th, Tuesday, November 12th at 6 p.m. down at the Goodwill Industries building down on Broadway. It's an opportunity for us to interact with and answer questions from the community. So please come out to that if you have interest. Next, I'd like to feature, every week, every time we do one of these, I'd like to highlight some of our units. I want the public to understand what goes on inside of LMPD and all of the work. And this is another one of our professional staff units that does an absolutely great job. Robin Oates is here with us. She's the supervisor of the unit, and she's going to give you kind of an overview of what the records unit does. And you'll discover that primary point of contact for a lot of citizens is the record unit. This is the people that they talk to on the phone when they have problems and they get reports taken. So it's a very important unit for us. And I'll introduce Robin Oates to say a few words about the records unit.
Thank you, Chief. I'm the Director of Records. When you all came in, this whole unit out here is our records division. We have 60 employees. That includes myself, 2 managers, and 4 supervisors. We're a unit that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People hear records and they think, oh, how boring. But to me, I find it, I have a passion for it. It's something that I love to do. It's a way for me to be able to help the community, help officers, and serve our department. And so one of the units that you hear the most about is our telephone reporting unit. That's the number that the people who answer the 574 LMPD number. So when you call there, you're going to talk to a civilian or a professional staff employee, and they're going to find out what you need. This is a way for citizens, to be able to have quicker service than having to wait on an officer to come to their house. It also frees officers up to make higher priority calls. So nobody ever calls us here to say, hey, you're doing a great job, or guess what good thing just happened to me. We only get phone calls when something bad has happened to someone. And so all of the employees who work here are very passionate also about what they do. They have a calling to help people and to help citizens and to help officers. So the telephone reporting unit this year has taken over 84,000 calls to date. And these calls range from someone's car being stolen, someone having something spray painted on their house, contents from their vehicle being stolen, a missing person report. There's all kinds of things, different kinds of reports they take. So this year they've taken 35,117 reports. So when you calculate that based on the time it would take for an officer to travel to that call, to interview the citizen, to find out what happened, and to fill out the report, we have saved over 26,000 hours of officer time, which is equivalent to 12 full-time employees that this unit is able to save and help with. Some of the other things they do is they take crime tips. Crime tips are a way for detectives to be able to get a snippet of information that may help them in solving a crime, or at least leading them to another interview or place to look within a crime. We've received 6,755 crime tips so far this year. Also, one of the things they do is they enter all the private tows and repos for agencies. That way, if you wake up in the morning and your car's gone and you call us to say someone's stolen my car, we're able to look and say, no, it was parked illegally and it's been towed, or your car was repossessed. So another way to help citizens. The telephone reporting unit takes, like I said, all kinds of reports instead of sending officers. Records consist of 5 different units. Each unit has a specific role that they play. One of the units is our central records unit, which meets with the public. When the public come to get a copy of a report, they're the ones that talk to them. They're the ones that talk to them on the phone. They receive emails requesting the reports. So they're the ones who look up these reports and give citizens a copy. And then we have our data entry unit, which within our data entry unit, they're linking all arrests that come in by officers to the case that they're clearing. They do things in the background to, again, free up time for the officers. And that really is what we feel like our goal is here and our duty and responsibility. And we all really enjoy that, and we enjoy helping officers. We also have the false alarm reduction unit, and that is where we monitor all the false alarms, because false alarms, again, impede on officers' time. And if there's false alarms, this year we've had over 21,000 false alarms. So if you think about that, how many calls that is that we could have not had to send officers on. This is a unit that works with citizens, they work with businesses, they work with divisions to be able to identify businesses that have frequent alarms or customers that have frequent alarms, to be able to train them better on those things. Records is also responsible for reporting our crime data each month to the Kentucky State Police and to the FBI. We have to report our NIBRS crime data that gets published once a year by the FBI for each jurisdiction. So that's one of the things we do too. So we work to ensure that the data is complete, that it has all the elements that are reflect the crime that really occurred, and to make sure that we've gotten everything together. So that's kind of an overview of records, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Robin. And a couple of things I'll point out. She talked about the amount of hours that officers would have spent taking these runs. And as much as we like to go out and take reports, we know that the efficiency of being able to call and get your problem taken care of is very important. And frankly, when we all came on, those were all reports we were taking ourselves. And I don't know how we would function without this unit. Not only that, but when we mess up reports, they're the ones that fix them to make sure that everything gets done the right way. And one of the other things I'll point out is that Lisa Keller is here. She runs our false alarm unit within records, and she was actually our Civilian of the Year last year. So she does an outstanding job in taking care of people and making sure that those issues get covered. So at this time, I will open it up for questions.
Do you have any updates on the shooting that happened this morning?
Say your name and station.
Alexis Matthews. Can you give us any updates if you do have them on that shooting? And then just speak to the fact that it happened in such an open space. I mean, people live over there. It's close to the Chestnut Street YMCA, the Western Libraries over there. Just is happening in the city.
Right. And the question was any updates on the shooting from overnight off of Chestnut Street. And I don't have anything more than what we gave out earlier. But it was a male in his 20s that was found deceased at that time. And as far as suspect information or anything, we don't have any further information and specifics to give out. But what I will say is, I talked about it earlier. The level of violent crime is in the city is absolutely a problem. And that's part of where we have to make sure that our strategy is putting our people in the right place at the right time. And so understanding the data, understanding the trends, and then giving that information to officers in a way that says, this is where I need you. These are the things that I need you to do in those areas at these times in order to combat that. And so that is exactly why we're putting a crime plan in place, is so that we can have a more direct impact and taking care of this. As opposed, we're doing a great job in the investigation side of it. We want to do a better job in the prevention side of it.
Do you know if the consent decree will come down before, Ian Hart with WHAS Solicitors, do you know if the consent decree will come down before the end of this year?
Question is, do I know if the consent decree will come down before the end of this year? We've signed an agreement in principle that we are going to negotiate, and we plan to continue negotiations. We're making good progress. I would assume that we would get it done before then, but if you'd have asked me back in February after, 11 months of waiting on that letter from the DOJ, I would have told you we would have had it done by the end of the summer. So apparently I'm not Nostradamus. I would assume that, but all I can tell you for certain is that we are going to continue negotiating and try to get the best deal done possible that benefits the city as much as possible, so that we can focus on getting this violent crime issue under control. The thing is that you have two sides of this, is that our job comes down to keeping people safe and protecting constitutional rights. And if we fail at either one of those, we've failed. You can't do one without the other. And so we want to make sure that we do this the right way and we do it collaboratively with the community.
And do you think the change in presidential
Hit me with the back-to-back questions, huh?
Yeah, is that going to have any effect on those negotiations if it extends past this year?
I can't predict what the next administration will do. I think we do have some history from this next administration having been a previous administration. But all I can tell you is that we're gonna continue working our tails off trying to get this thing done and take care of LMPD, take care of the rest of the city as well as the community. Yes, sir.
Hey, there's that CWDRB. Chief, we've heard a lot about the mayor's proposal to bring back that mask ordinance from the past, because you guys have seen some trouble with people committing crimes while wearing a mask. Just recently, we did a story last night about a Metro Councilwoman who's putting forth a new mask ordinance that would make it okay to wear a mask for health concerns, if you're at the grocery store, Kroger, and you're immunocompromised, but still reinforce that there will be legal repercussions if you use a mask while committing a crime. Do you have any thought about that? Do you have any concerns about that? What pops to mind for you?
Well, I'll tell you what pops to mind for me is that what we know is that we've had at least 123 violent crimes that have been committed with people involving wearing masks. That's crazy. Here's the thing is that whatever the tool is that's available to us, whether it's a mask ordinance, whether it's technology, whatever it is, we're going to use every tool at our disposal to make sure that we stop and prevent violent crime. And so we have no desire to interfere with people's ability to protect their health. We recognize that. We've talked a lot about this mask ordinance in the last few weeks, probably ad nauseum. It is not our crime strategy. We are not building a crime strategy around mask enforcement. I'm not asking officers to go out and enforce a mask ordinance. That's never been part of it. This all started as a conversation related to, obviously it started after that PRP shooting, where all of our suspects were wearing masks, hanging out for an extended period of time, wearing masks. And just so you know, sometimes behavior is suspicious, and sometimes a mask adds to that suspicion. That's a thing that we have to do, is we have a duty to investigate suspicious behavior that might be indicative of crime occurring. And so however we do that, whether it's including a mask ordinance or not, I am asking officers and I am pushing officers out there to say, I need you to be proactive in combating violent crime. That's how we're going to keep people alive.
I do want to ask you about this, Dean, and I am going to have feedback questions. But given that the policy is so specific about officers not being authorized to target the head or the neck, given that Dobson was shot in the collarbone, why only a letter of reprimand? Were there any other mitigating factors when Dean fired those pepper balls that played into your decision?
Yeah, and so that was exactly what he was sustained on, is that high targeting of Mr. Dobson. And yeah, there's a ton of mitigating factors that go into this, right? This was the second day of mass unrest. We had several officers injured. We'd had officers hit with Molotov cocktails, rocks. One of the other things that we factor in is that Officer Dean was wearing a gas mask, which occludes your vision. It makes it difficult to see and process your surroundings. He was giving verbal commands to those people. He could not see who they were, according to his statement. And when you see his video, it appears that way as well. It's dark out and they have a very bright light. You know, the lights that you all carry on your cameras, and it's shining right in his face, which is one of the things that we faced during that time period. Was people were intentionally using lights in order to blind officers or keep officers from being able to see. And then we were being hit with rocks from farther in the distance. So there are a lot of mitigating circumstances that go into that. I do not discount the impact that it had on Mr. Dobson. And it is obviously a violation and he's sustained on that. But there are a lot of mitigating circumstances that also go into that, that tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving situation. And like I said, I also factor in how Officer Dean behaved afterwards. He had the option to be a bad employee, and he took the high road, took this on, accepted the fact that he was under investigation, accepted the fact that that he was being investigated criminally by the FBI for civil rights violations, accepted the fact that he made a mistake, self-reported all of it. All of those things go into my disciplinary decisions when it comes to that. So yes, there were a lot of mitigating factors.
So given that training is going to be upped for investigating use of force incidents, maybe the relationship with the FBI right now might be a little strained, but do you see a possible nexus for a road between LMPD's PIU when they see a potential civil rights violation and kicking that over to the FBI for possible investigations?
I wouldn't say the relationship is strained between us and the FBI. I think we have a good relationship with the FBI. I would say our relationship with our federal partners in general are probably as strong as they've ever been. That being said, it is not uncommon for us to work with the FBI on civil rights investigations. And we have PIU officers that are assigned to the FBI's public corruption unit, that's exactly what they investigate is public officials, police officers, elected officials, those types of things, and potential criminal or civil rights violations. So they have a unit that is exactly what they do.
I'm just curious about the path between one of those use of force investigation that may lend itself to a possible civil rights violation. Like, how do those investigations go from LMPD's PIU to the FBI?
Yeah, so it's not uncommon for us to screen a lot of our investigations through the FBI, and they make a decision whether they're going to pick it up or they kick it back to us. That the FBI is kind of funny with some of the way they do some of their stuff. So often they don't write us a letter and say, we're taking this case or we're turning this case down. So I don't have a letter from the FBI to produce to you on open records before you even request that says they screen this case or they screen that case. But we turn cases over to them all the time to be screened. And frankly, there are a lot of cases that we would much rather them investigate than take on ourselves.
speaking about a case that the FBI did investigate when it comes to civil rights violations and LMPD department's reaction, your reactions to the federal jury's decision to convict Brett Nicholson for violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor when he fired through those windows of her apartment on that night in March of 2020.
Like I said in the statement, we respect that jury's decision. We respect the process. And I hope that the community feels a sense of justice for what happened. Obviously, this community's been through a lot post that incident. And I'll tell you exactly what I told officers is that I wouldn't expect any of them to behave the way that that detective did that day. Plain and simple. It's unacceptable. Whether or not he was indicted by a grand jury, whether or not he was charged, whether or not he was found guilty, doesn't matter to me. That's not the behavior that's acceptable. It's not okay. And I want to make it clear that that case is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to that case. There's a lot of different people involved. But what I can tell you definitively without question is that what he did was not okay. And it is not how I would expect other officers to act. And I think they know that. And we haven't seen other officers perform that way.
I'm Marina Johnson with the Courier Journal. I'm kind of going back to the Officer Dean case. Are there any general concerns with somebody being on leave for that extensive of a period of time? And what does that transition kind of look like back into regular duty?
Yeah, so that her question was, are there concerns about somebody being on leave for that amount of time and then transitioning them back to full duty? Absolutely. And this is something that we face in other cases, right? Officers injured, officer involved shootings. And so part of they're still employees. And so we still make sure that they go through all the training that's required. And we try to incorporate them into the work. Because what you'll find is, particularly like officer involved shootings, I'm just talking in general about officers that are on leave for a long time, particularly after traumatic events and things like that, is that mental health is a concern for us all the time. And someone being put on a shelf and isolated is one of the most damaging things that you can do. So that's part of our wellness initiatives, is to make sure that our employees, regardless of why they're on leave, that we want to make sure that when and if they come back to duty, they're a whole employee and they're able to perform well. So he completed all the training and everything that on time as he was supposed to, and he's doing a really good job right now.
What is he doing now?
He is a 7th Division detective now.
Going back to the numbers, it shows that homicides are down compared to this time last year. But are you having any concern?
Shootings are down, homicides are up.
So, shootings are down. Any concern that as we approach the holidays that there will be an uptick on violent crime overall?
Yeah, not necessarily that there'll be an uptick related to holidays, but we do know in homicides at least. And again, part of our crime plan, we are accounting for, we know that crime is seasonal as well. So we know going into the holidays, we need people to be aware of things like car thefts, car break-ins. These happen on, mall parking lots and things like that. One of the other things that we get an uptick in is robberies during the winter holiday seasons, as far as business robberies. The other thing that is even more concerning is increase in suicides. You get people that are very sad around the holidays for different reasons, and holidays bring out emotions in us. So if you or someone you care about, they struggle during the holidays, make sure you keep an eye on them. Make sure you get them the resources and the help that they need, because that is not what we want to see happen to people during the holidays. So thank you. Good to go.
Anything else?
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks. Great.
I've been doing it so long. I bet.